when I went to the gym, I went at McGill, and like I said, I was very thin. I was about 6 feet tall, but about 135 pounds, like very, very thin and not very strong. And one of the obstacles to me of being in the gym was that it's embarrassing even to some degree to recount, because when I was there, people would come over and show me how to use the weights. And that's friendly, but it's also very annoying. And I think I was bench pressing like 75 pounds with some difficulty at that point. And so, that's not very much weight. And so one of the things you can imagine that when people are going to hit the gym, there's a couple of, especially if they haven't been athletic, there's a couple of things that are going to be impediments. They're going to be self-conscious. They don't know what the hell they're doing. Plus, hypothetically, they lack discipline. Now, you had the advantages of being slightly, somewhat on the larger side and also being athletic. But how did you develop the discipline, and what impediments did you have to overcome as you were developing that discipline?
Yeah. So, I heard a quote the other day that stuck with me because it thought of me of this. It was, you don't start something because you're passionate, you stick with it because you're passionate. So I kind of just started it. I fell into it naturally. And like I said, as I started to see results and get a little bit more joy out of it, I started to become more passionate and put more effort into it. And every year since I was a child, I've become a little bit more consistent, a little bit more passionate, put a little bit more effort into it. So my discipline has continued to grow over time because I just stuck with something for a while and want to see how it went, and it just kind of tumble affected. But I definitely had some of the similar feelings, and I hear it from everybody about being a little anxious being in the gym. And it's funny, it's people will come help you to make you feel comfortable, but like you said, it can almost be demeaning, make you feel a little bit like, all right, you think I need your help? But when I was young...
Right.
Yeah. So my dad actually had one of those old sand weights. It was like a weeder bar with sand weights in the basement. And I remember setting up some boxes, filling them up with stuff and lying on it and trying to bench press on it, because it's hard to balance a bench press at first. Like you talked about the stability and all that. It's difficult. So I was a young kid in my basement doing that with push-ups and pull-ups. And that's really what got me into the whole weightlifting, building muscle thing. And that was purely, like I mentioned, just to get better at sports. I assumed if I was stronger, I would be better at sports. And then after that, I joined a gym at a young age. There was a summer program that gave kids a free membership over the summer. And I had to ask my parents to come sign me up because you had to be 16 and I was 14. So they had to come in and sign a waiver for that. And I wasn't the most disciplined kid, for sure. My parents definitely made me independent, and to have some of the free reign that they gave me, to be able to go out with friends and do stuff, I had to earn it. I had to have a job, finish my chores, do my homework and all that stuff. So my parents definitely raised me to have that kind of mindset. And I grew up in a town with some good kids, luckily didn't get stuck into anything bad. And we were all my friends were very passionate about sports, and I wanted to excel. So I kept putting myself in the gym. And at a young age, I remember I didn't have a car or any way to get there all the time. My parents would work late, and I remember I would run, even in the winter in Ottawa. It would be like a foot of snow on the ground, and I'd be jogging to the gym. It was about 1.5 miles, but still a decent little run in the snow. And I was just super dedicated from a young age because I loved it so much. And as I mentioned, sometimes just being in the gym with my music and that focus was just like a point of solitude for myself to enjoy. And there was a quiet gym, luckily, and I slowly learned over time that no one in the gym is looking at you or judging you. Everybody who's been in there was a beginner at some point, so they're not looking at you making fun of you. They were you probably a year or two ago, and everyone's just truly there to help out. And I've discovered that the fitness community in general is a very encouraging community, because everybody has the same experience as you. They get in, they feel better, they get some confidence. They're like, this is great. Like, I would love for other people to feel this too, you hope, if they're nice enough. And that typically allows them to be very inclusive and want people to come and join and just be a part of it all. So I found it's not as judgmental as people think once you're in it.
Right. Well, that's a really good point, because part of being self-conscious in the gym is, and this is true for overweight people and for anybody who's out of shape, or for anybody who just doesn't know what they're doing, which is pretty much everybody when they go to the gym the first time, especially if they don't have as we pointed out, a history of athleticism. It's very easy to think that these people who are throwing the weights around in there are judgmental. It's really a consequence of your own self-consciousness and proclivity to self-judgment. But the fact that those people are in there working on themselves does indicate very clearly through their actions that they believe that they still have work to do. And as you said, the probability that many of them who are in there, or perhaps all of them to some degree, were in the same boat as you at some point is very, very high. And it was certainly the case that the people who were coming over to help me weren't doing it in a judgmental way. That was my problem. And there's another thing to concentrate on there too. One of the things that one of my favorite thinkers, psychoanalyst Carl Jung, pointed out, was very, very helpful to me to understand, was that he said the precursor to the Redeemer is the fool. And what he meant by that was that if you're going to master something, the first thing you have to do is admit to yourself that you're not a master of it already, because then you wouldn't have to do anything. So you have to allow yourself to be the fool. And, one of the things I've noticed about people who are highly successful is that they will jump into new things that they don't know anything about and be the fool, be the person who doesn't know anything, be the person who's low man on the totem pole, start at the lowest rung, and they won't pretend to know more than they do know. They ask the stupid questions that are necessary. They humble themselves in accordance with their novice position. They accept that weight, but they also do so in the understanding that if they're honest with themselves, they can make the kind of incremental progress that you described, right? Because you said you got more and more disciplined as the years went by, and that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you start at the bottom. What matters is that you're so stupid and blind that you refuse to learn and that you stay there, right? So it's trajectory that matters and not absolute position. And so that's a useful thing for people to know. It's like, of course you feel like a bloody fool when you do something the first time. What the hell do you expect? Mm-hmm. Like, you are a fool, but that doesn't mean that you can't move beyond that.
Yeah. No, you touched on something great there when you were expanding. If it's something that makes you feel worried or anxious, or you're thinking other people are judging you, it's probably actually a reflection of yourself, something that you need to grow on. And that's something that I really noticed, because I used to be super anxious in public speaking. And I remember you've done a lot of talks on fear immersion and stepping into it and the confidence that can build. And I didn't really understand this whole mindset of all the confidence that would come from that. But I would always do podcasts or public speaking, or I started to get in some seminar events or being asked to come talk for my success as a bodybuilder. And every time I went there, I'd be Mr. Olympia walking into this thing, terrified out of my mind, like hands shaking, stumbling my words. And I still feel like that sometimes, but I've gotten better. But I realized, I took a step back after a few times. I'm like, all right, this is something I need to put myself into more to become better at it. And I started to actually plan my events to be more talking based, sign up for a few more, request to talk a little bit more in front of people. And it was terrifying at first, and I still embarrass myself sometimes. I still have memories standing on stage, stuttering, or my lisp comes out really bad and feeling embarrassed and getting off stage. But I also have a lot of memories now where I've killed a good talk and I've stepped off stage feeling so confident. And over that realm of me becoming better at something I wasn't good at, I noticed my confidence in all aspects of my life started to increase, not just in public speaking. So I think that being able to have that humility, like you said, look at yourself, be the fool, and understand where you need to grow and put yourself into positions to grow is something that has helped me immensely, and something I've taken from some of your words in the past too.